This is 17th Street in downtown Oakland. Walk score 100. Dense housing, multiple transit options. Online urbanists love stuff like this. Relatively narrow streets and tight blocks, mixed-use developments. When it came time to build new housing, this was the neighborhood that said, "Yes, in my backyard." And this is the corner of 17th and Franklin. See that white building? It's been vacant since 2017. Before that, it was full of beloved local businesses. Colonial Donuts was a staple of the community, run by the same family for 28 years. A diva's closet and making ends meet offered fun, affordable fashion. Now, they're all gone. After years of double-digit rent hikes, every tenant was evicted. Colonial Donuts offered to pay whatever it took to stay, and were rejected, forced to close this location. The building was gutted and painted a dull white. And today, it hosts just 2 businesses. The spot where Colonial Donuts once stood, still empty, in one of the densest, most walkable neighborhoods in the country. Across the street was Henry's Gallery Cafe. It was run by a South Korean immigrant couple, putting their kids through college. Rising rents forced them out too. After losing their business, they were eventually deported back to Korea. Their spot cycled through chain restaurants like Beauty's Bagels, then Wise Sons, both now closed. Today, it's a Peruvian restaurant charging $30 a plate. Walk a little east to Webster Street, and you'll see shiny high-rises full of apartments. Many praise them as having helped solve Oakland's housing crisis. And in some ways, they did. Rents in the area have stabilized. I took these photos of the area around 17th Street in 2014 and 2015, and the difference is noticeable. The city skyline has grown, and for a young, progressive urbanist, this might seem like a good thing. But are you picking up what I'm putting down here? Everyone goes on and on about how life would just be perfect if we only had a walkable city, increased density, and built new housing. But perfect for who? These businesses were beloved by locals who fought hard to save them, but they were left behind and almost entirely forgotten in the name of nonstop progress and profit. Because sure, new housing helps, but who gets to live there? What do newcomers bring to the area? And what happens to those who already called this city home? Because at the end of the day, without considering these questions, walkable cities alone won't save you. Urbanists tell you that density is the solution to all of our problems. They praise any and all progress towards their ideal city as meaningful and necessary. But in a place like the San Francisco Bay Area, what we've seen happen is multiple waves of urban renewal and gentrification, bringing in more residents, often push others further out into the periphery. Antioch, Tracy, Stockton, even deep into the Central Valley. And in all those places, which are car-centric and often lack adequate public transportation, pressure is put on their housing markets. And back in the urban core, the cycle continues, until the newcomers who unwittingly contributed to this displacement are themselves displaced. Businesses that came in during an initial wave of new construction are then subject to the same forces that brought them in, and forced to relocate or close altogether when property owners see an opportunity to make a quick buck. A common line of thought in urbanist circles is that building housing, any and all housing, is always good, even luxury housing. The idea is that the housing market is constrained by supply, which means that higher income residents are competing with everyone else for scarce housing options in desirable neighborhoods. So the solution must be simple: just build more. Loosen up zoning rules, let developers construct market rate towers anywhere they want, and eventually, prices will come down. It's a core part of what pundits like Ezra Klein call the abundance agenda. The belief that if we just remove regulations and let the free market do its thing, we'll build our way out of the housing crisis. What could go wrong? While that sounds good on paper, we've seen what happens. In places like New York and San Francisco, there are thousands of vacant housing units, mostly luxury condos. The worst part is that these vacant apartments alone would be enough to house every single homeless person in those cities, and still have some left over. Because to the ultra-wealthy, real estate doesn't need to be lived in. It's a financial instrument, a store of value that can be used as a tax write-off. Now, that's not to say we shouldn't allow all types of housing to go up, but it's more nuanced than the YIMBYs will lead you to believe. They'll call anyone who says differently a NIMBY, not in my backyard. That critiques about preserving neighborhood character are rooted in a hatred for change, or even xenophobia. But let's take a step back. When money is invested into a neighborhood and people move in, that brings better infrastructure. We've seen it right here in Oakland. Downtown streets are having potholes filled at a rate that just never happened 10 years ago. Bike lanes are going in everywhere. Newer, safer traffic signals, nicer bus stops, and reducing the lanes on high-speed roads. They're putting in the work. But why didn't it happen before the luxury condos went up and the small businesses were driven out? What made this neighborhood all of a sudden worthy of paying attention to? Part of the answer lies in the city's contradictions. The elephant in the room is that this neighborhood, like a lot of dense urban cores across the country, struggles with high crime, in particular property crime. Businesses leave due to break-ins. Residents and office workers hear the scary stories of people being robbed on the street and stay inside. Although crime in American cities has been on the decline for several years now, it's a very real concern. So when you have a very real problem, and then you combine that with an area that developers see as lucrative and profitable, all of a sudden, the city starts to take notice. They clean things up, improve the streets, and make them more friendly to everyone. And there's nothing wrong with that. But as property values increase, building owners want to capitalize on it. And so they make improvements and skirt around laws to evict tenants or raise rents. And at some point, the entire character of a neighborhood changes. The people and businesses that could have stood to benefit from safer streets and a better city have long been priced out. Even safety becomes a commodity. When the city finally decides to fix the streets, it's not the people who needed them most. It's for the people moving in. The donut shops and discount clothing stores get replaced with trendy cafes and Lululemons. The office buildings become occupied by tech startups with increasingly absurd names, and the population itself changes. We know what this is, don't we?
Day in the life of an Oakland gentrifier. You wake up illegally occupying unceded Ohlone territory, known to colonizers as the lower bottoms. You took an Uber to the body shop to pick up your Crown Vic. All 4 windows freshly replaced after being bipped in broad daylight by the lake. You didn't have much of value in the car, but you figure whoever did it needed your Shannon and the Clams vinyl more than you did anyways, so you thank them for the opportunity to provide mutual aid to your community. You stop at the corner store for a kombucha. They finally started carrying it. You've been asking the owner for months now. You don't know his name, but you swear he loves you. Out front you run into old man Hayward. He asks you to buy him some grapes. It's always fucking grapes, man. You give him $5, but on the way out he asks you to buy him grapes again. Classic Hayward. On your way to your part-time barista job, you get a slack from the entire polycule. They're breaking up with you and you need to find a new place to live. Sock accuses you of weaponizing neurotypical privilege and toxic masculinity. Despite your identity as a cisgender female, you've made Aiden and Lavender uncomfortable. You correctly point out their framing as blatant butch erasure and prepare the call-out post. It's gonna do numbers on Lex. While drinking at Eli's last night, you met up with Sock's other partner, Gooch. Knowing you've been broke ever since your parents back in San Ramon cut you off, he offers you some side work. You haul an entire trunk full of stolen catalytic converters out to Point Richmond, wondering what went wrong with your life. If only you'd finished that damn degree at SF State, you could have been a successful gender studies professor by now. But instead you trek back down I-80 to the new apartment Gooch hooked you up with. It ain't bad for $17.50 a month.
But give it 5, maybe 10 years. And then the gentrifier, all of a sudden, becomes the one being priced out and forced to move somewhere else. If they don't just go back to wherever it is they came from, chances are they're heading just a few miles down the road, away from that cute little walkable city that brought them here, and now they've got a longer commute, and the rent ain't that much cheaper.
Day in the life of an East Bay commuter. At 7 a.m., you roll out of bed still bitter you've been priced out of both SF and Oakland. Even with 2 jobs and a dropshipping side hustle, the only place you could still afford to live was Vallejo. Crossing 2 bridges every day is starting to add up. Your fast track has been empty for weeks now, so you hit up your entire roster, seeing which situationship you can breadcrumb into Venmoing you a few bucks for bridge toll. Sock texts back the fastest, as always. They're back at the spot in West Oakland. You should really stop by and see their goat before work. Sock has a goat now? Yeah. That checks out. Normally, you'd just park at Sock's place and walk over to the BART station. But all the tech bros are out of town for Burning Man, so there's practically no traffic. You stop at the corner store to pick up a Red Bull and are immediately disappointed that old man Hayward isn't in his usual spot. The new owners replaced him with some weird white guy who calls himself Elder Fremont. The implications of this are astounding. They finally gentrified the lower bottoms. Guess it's not 2014 anymore. It's not clocking to Sock that you've got a job. They want you to take them to Soma to have lunch with their on-again, off-again boyfriend Gooch. You mean that douchebag who works at Salesforce? course, you really need to dump that loser. You tell Sock while getting on the bridge. You get off the freeway and drop off Sock at 10th and Market. Gooch is back from his business trip to Iowa and offers you something called Des Moines chocolate. You'll pass. Sock asks you to go with them in Fruitvale to the farmer's market on Sunday. They named their goat Fruitvale? That's hella weird, bro. You say, yeah, that sounds cool, fully knowing you're gonna leave them on red until the next time you need to use their fast track. At 11 a.m., you finally show up for work at the cafe on Van Ness. It's a much smoother ride now that there's no construction. When you sit down, you realize you left your laptop back home in Vallejo. You work remotely, but the free Wi-Fi and strawberry matchas are too good to pass up. You text your boss you're taking a mental health day and head to your second job, dog sitting for some rich lesbian couple. You don't even like dogs, but $20 an hour under the table covers the upkeep on your BMW. Maybe one day you'll afford the city again. Until then, you tell yourself Vallejo's only 45 minutes away with no traffic.
Zoom out a little more, and you'll see a region cut apart by highways, plagued by some of the worst traffic in the nation. Outside of the few core cities, it's stroads and strip malls as far as the eye can see, baby. That's the American dream. Regional transit services like BART are facing service cuts that could lead to wait times of up to an hour, putting even more cars on the road. Again, the San Francisco Bay Area isn't the only region dealing with this. It could be anywhere in North America right now. When people champion the idea of a walkable city, they praise the superblocks of Barcelona, the bicycle culture of the Netherlands, the extensive high-speed rail networks of Asia. So if we could just do that here, we'd have a much better quality of life. Or maybe we're too far down the rabbit hole of car-centric sprawl to ever be saved. We're cooked, chat. Maybe if we all just moved to Europe, we wouldn't have any of these problems. But Barcelona has been taken over by Airbnb landlords catering to tourists, and the cost of living in the Netherlands ain't that much cheaper than a large American city. And good luck actually immigrating anywhere. It's a long process that takes years and thousands of dollars, and once you get there, you gotta start life all over in a new culture. It's not for everyone, and Europe isn't all cute little cafes and town squares with cobblestone streets. Look at this beautiful 6-lane expressway in the middle of Helsinki. Isn't it great? Or take a trip with me to the wonderful city of Tallinn, Estonia, where they've done a great job at balancing walkability, maintaining historic neighborhoods, and allowing those who need to drive the ability to do so. It's not perfect by any means, but I found it to be relatively affordable. But who knows? Give it a few years, and Tallinn too might fall to the same forces of capital that makes other dense historic cities playgrounds for the rich.
Imagine a Walmart here. Look at all this room. Look at, there's cars here though. People drive here. I like that they drive on these like medieval streets. Where are the 72-lane highways? I know they need to build one like right here, like right there, like right above it would be really cute. Like this would be perfect for a Buc-ee's, like right here. Why am I in Estonia? I'm just here for fun. So I was in Finland. I was in the city of Tampere for a creator event for City Skylines. But like, this is a pretty good road. Like, look at that. It's got some lanes. One of them's a bike lane, but otherwise, look at that. Imagine not being a Nordic social democracy. I know, right? I'm kind of in it. I'm kind of Nordpilled now. That's like a US style bike lane that's like just like right next to the road. Most of the bike lanes here are like on the sidewalk and they're like their own thing. There's a parking lot. I've never walked so much in my life except for when I lived in San Francisco with no car. So I took a train from Tampere to Helsinki. When I got to Helsinki, I took a tram to the ferry terminal and then took the ferry to Tallinn. And then from the ferry, I walked to my hotel. Rate the walkability? Oh, here it's like 9 out of 10, 8, maybe 8 out of 10. It's still pretty car-filled, but it's like, it's also not.
If simply building more housing and better infrastructure won't save us, and moving to another country ain't realistic, what can we do? How can we improve the conditions of cities without pushing out those who already live there? It's complicated and messy. First of all, we can't just rely on a few expensive, densely populated urban cores to be the only places that don't require the use of a car. And we can't position the argument for better planning as being solely for a certain type of person. That stereotypical upper middle class liberal with a white collar job that sips matcha served up by non-binary baristas, or the hyper-online nerds with cameras who walk around places pointing out what they like and dislike about infrastructure with no real concern for the culture of a place. No, this shit needs to appeal to all demographics, no matter where they live. We need more affordable and vibrant suburbs and small towns that are just as easy to get around as a place like 17th Street in Oakland. Out in the suburbs, you don't need high-rises to create livable, connected communities. Even even small increases in density paired with reliable transit can make a huge difference, if done right. Take a place like El Cerrito, 20 minutes north of Oakland. It has 2 BART stations, a relatively well-connected bus system, and they're slowly building denser housing along San Pablo Avenue, all while keeping a quieter, more approachable feel. Again, it's not perfect, but they're going in the right direction. In big cities, we need strong protections for renters and businesses so that when new developments do go in, they aren't priced out. We must ensure that the people who made the neighborhood what it is are allowed to stay. And as painful as it sounds, we might also need policies like vacancy taxes on luxury units to discourage speculation. If you own property in a high-demand area and aren't using it, you're still gonna make money renting it out than if you just kept it as a tax haven. Infrastructure improvements need to happen before neighborhoods get expensive. Safety and accessibility should be prioritized for everyone, no matter who they are and where they live. Because if you're living in a place like El Cerrito, and you can take transit to work in the city, and it's a short walk or bus ride to anything you need in the neighborhood, when you do need to drive somewhere, it's much nicer with less traffic, and you're under less pressure to move into either the urban core or further out away from it. And most of all, living in a walkable city isn't gonna make you a cooler, more interesting person. It's not gonna make all your problems go away or make you more social, better looking, or happier. It might help, but in order to do that, you need to be part of a strong community. And if you're just coming into a place and ranting and raving about how cool those new bike lanes and high-rises are, you might be missing the bigger picture. Who's benefiting from it? Who's getting pushed out? And of course, how long is it gonna take before you're next? Because at the end of the day, walkable cities won't save you.